Today I'm going to show you a simple way to knit a cardigan band at the same time as the sweater is being knitted. It does require two beds, either a Japanese style machine with ribber or a double bed machine like a Passap or Superba. Here are some examples of sweaters knitted with that kind of band from my book, Standard Gauge Cardi-ket Collection. The setup can be done as though for full needle rib or as though for 1x1 rib. Usually you choose depending on the weight of the yarn. Only for very light yarns would we choose the full needle rib setup. There are also variations possible by adding more or fewer stitches and sometimes a spare ribber or front bed stitch outlying the others may be added to help stop rolling, because the thicker fabric where it joins the thinner fabric, you do get a little flipping. The edge doesn't roll as it normally would, and that's one of the points of the band. But there can be a tendency to flip at the transition. The other secret to a perfect finish is getting just the right amount of steam to stop that flipping tendency without killing the fabric. As I mentioned, there are variations, but I'm going to show you the basic simple version here. This is a nifty way of knitting your cardigan band right onto the front while you're still knitting the front. These edge 8 stitches will be involved in the band. It does not have to be 8. That's what I've decided on for this pattern. So we're going to transfer them to and fro as though we were creating 1x1 rib, one on each bed alternating. So that will be 4 band stitches on each bed. And to get into that configuration, since we were knitting a tubular hem up to this point, for this particular example, I've got 2 sets of stitches. Therefore, I'm going to double up on each of the needles that I want to remain in work, transferring to and fro until I have what I want, which is alternate stitches in work on the beds on the end. They are set up so they alternate, but if all the needles came out, they would hit. They oppose perfectly, in other words. Long stitch is created like this. This bed has to knit normally if I'm going to knit a stockinette front, the back bed that is. So it's going to remain on your stockinette setting, which on the Passap is in. On Brothers it's in, and on Studios and other similar machines it's usually labeled stockinette or plain knitting. This is the bed that's going to do something different. We're going to use the CX setting again. I'm going to raise the stitch size here to 6 because I've already swatched and that's what I'm liking, to use in concert with stitch size 7 on the other carriage lock for stockinette. Of course, I need to set the row counter to 0 now to begin my band. What's going to happen is we were using CX. So back bed, front bed, back bed, front bed, knitted. Now we're using NCX. So the back bed will knit every row. The front bed is only going to knit alternate rows. Now on a Passap, as you know, the rule for double bed work is orange or red. The old ones are red. Slightly newer are orange strippers. And black strippers for single bed work. And how on earth will we decide? This is single, the rest is double. I let stockinette be the guide. This is only 4 needles that will have to be exposed to the extra pressure of the black strippers. And the likelihood of stockinette misbehaving in terms of dropped or tucked stitches without the black strippers goes way up. So I choose to use them. On Japanese machines, you won't need to choose strippers, but of course you will need to engage your ribber and your ribber arm. And that means that weight is very important to getting the stockinette to knit off nicely, because you don't have your sinker plate in play. It will work. I do it frequently, but you've got to experiment with the amount of weight. I found that the first row was awfully tight with black strippers in. So I knitted the first one with orange, and now I'm going to change back to the black that should be there for the rest of the project. And now everything is knitting smoothly. So we do this up the entire length of the sweater until it's time to shape the neckline. It's being knitted and attached simultaneously. I've knitted all the way up the front, and now it is time to bind off for the neckline. And so all I have to do is transfer these stitches from the front bed or the river bed to the back bed and begin my neckline shaping. I usually try to arrange it so that all the band stitches will get bound off in the first piece of shaping. If you have to adjust the pattern slightly to do that, it's not a big deal. But of course, if I write the pattern, then I do it that way. Before you start your project, even if you're beginning with an already written pattern, it's worth it to do a little bit of swatching. We want to adjust our stitch sizes relative to one another so that the band is non-rolling, not distorting. We don't want it to shorten the cardigan front, nor do we want it to allow the cardi front to droop. See, these are the long stitches. This is the CX side. You've got like a lining, really, on the edge of the cardigan. It's a very simple, quick way to knit a band.